The first part of the newsletter we'll be talking about today, and which I will be the facilitator of it. I will be talking about what the learning attitude is needed, but what kind of learning attitude is needed by the AI generation, which is you guys, all right? Or you're probably called the Z generation. Okay, so leadership training to discover self-ability. Okay, that's the first thing we'll be talking about just in a minute. But broadly speaking, we will go through, Allison will go through project management, which we will talk about how to get things kick off and how do we go through a cycle of reviews and going through a cycle of where the leader takes the lead, and then with the mentors helping finishing OKRs, then moving on to a review of what's good, what was done very well and very poorly, and how to do better, and then continue on with the cycle. So with that, I think we will get into a learning cycle of improvement. So hopefully that you will be able to do better again and again after every different kind of projects. So Allison will go through that, and then we will also towards the end talk about what OKR is. And so let me get started by going, oops, hold on. My phone just slipped. Okay. So we'll go back to the first page of the newsletter. And by the way, before I go on, last time when we talked about the trends, which I think you guys did an excellent job presenting it, did you have a chance to click on those different buttons and go to the different links and perhaps browse into more links? Can I have a response from someone who actually tried it?
The second newsletter?
The first newsletter.
Oh, the first one. Yes, I clicked through it. Yeah.
Were you aware that a lot of the descriptions in different colors actually is a link?
Yes.
Okay. Can I hear someone from Taipei, since you did not participate in about 2 weeks ago? Was it 2 weeks ago or a week ago? A week ago. Yeah, a week ago. So maybe Cherise, did you have a chance to click through some of the links on trends?
Yes, I did click on the links and watch several videos. Yeah.
Okay, was it new to you, or do you find it interesting?
I think it was they were really interesting because I don't really have many opportunities to get to know these new technology stuff, things I'm not in this kind of department. So I think it's very interesting.
Okay, good. I know some of you may think, how is that related to me? But we'll get to that in a minute, okay? Now, I know James is into, James, 你的系叫做什么？我每次都忘记，对不起。你可不可以告诉我中文，你的系叫做什么系？
机电整合系。
再说一遍。
机电整合。
机电整合。So it's like a combination of everything, right? You have mechanical studies and you have information technology studies, right?
Yes.
So you integrate the different disciplines together. So it's called 机电整合. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you must know some of these trends because you are doing a vehicle that is going to be self-driven by itself in an enclosed environment, right? 就是无人驾驶的车子. Okay, so you're probably more aware than, say, Cherise from English literature background. So anyway, let me get started with what we're trying to do today. So all these technologies trends are coming. So everybody's talking about in maybe 10 years down the road, a lot of the jobs will be lost to robots and AIs. So I hope all of you are not just scared or are ignoring the whole thing. We need to take a more proactive approach to understand how human work and how we can overcome or live together along with the robots and the AIs of this future world. And that's why we have today's session. Okay. So let me talk a little bit about what attitude needs to be learned by the AI generation, which is you guys. Okay. So I'm going to first talk about learning from mistakes. Now, it's very easy to say we all learn from our mistakes, but can somebody tell me how oftentimes can you accept that you made a mistake? Is Benjamin on the call? Benjamin is not on the call? Is Ben on the call?
Yeah.
Okay, Ben. How many times when you make a mistake, you can actually say to yourself, yes, I made a mistake. And then try to move from there and say, how can I do better? How many times do you, how often do you do that? Can you accept your mistakes?
Yes, most of the time.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so sometimes, it's very hard for us to improve from our doings because we simply do not see our own mistakes. Oftentimes, we see other people's mistakes, right? But we don't see the mistakes made by ourselves. So it is important when we need to learn from our own mistakes. And recognizing our mistakes is a very important first step. Okay, but it's not to say that we don't have confidence in ourselves and we're always afraid that we're going to make that mistake. So it's better to do something and learn from it than to do nothing. Okay, I hope you all agree. And then, but then, oftentimes I would hear, we have been doing this program now for about, this is going to be the third year. So of course, GCE Taipei program, you guys are the first group to experiment these online video classes. And hopefully we get something done over the internet. This is our first try, right? So oftentimes in the past 3 years, when we were doing劲Taipei, a lot of times we do find, for example, we run out of time, or people that's supposed to do something were not able to show up or complete a task. So oftentimes imperfection is the norm. 所以不完美就是常常发生。Okay, I know Cherise is probably taking a lesson in Montessori, right?
Yes.
Am I correct, Cherise?
Yes, correct.
Okay, how long have you been in the sign up for that program?
About half year.
Half a year. Is it a project-based program or is it a classroom-based program?
It's a classroom-based program, and we have classes like twice every month.
Okay, so you have classes. Do you need to apprentice or do you intern how to teach in the Montessori schools?
We will start the internship around March, so I haven't started yet.
Okay, so it's a classroom-based program where you really don't do anything other than learn, but you don't have an internship yet, so you don't really know how it is when you really get your hands into the actual apprenticeship of Montessori, right?
Right.
But I'm sure you can imagine if you're teaching very young kids. Montessori is usually anywhere from year 3 to 5, right? Age
my
3 to 5.
class is even younger, like from
Even
infant to
younger.
3 years old kid.
Oh, okay. You will always find imperfection is the norm, right?
Definitely.
Yes, chaos is the game. Okay, but don't worry, it's not just the young kids that are like that. Adults of this world is like that too. Okay,
Great.
So be ready to understand. You're never going to have a perfect world. You're not going to have a dream team all the time. You have to make it become a perfect team, a dream team. Okay.
Mhm.
So with that, I move on to be receptive to change. So can somebody tell me, perhaps not just Reese, maybe Monica, you're going to Italy, right? You're going to Milan. So, sorry, Monica, where are you right now? Are you in New York or already in Milan?
I'm still in New York.
Oh, good. Okay. So I just want to make sure I'm not dragging you up from your bed.
No.
Okay.
No, it's fine. It's 8:30. Oh, 8, yeah.
Okay,
8:30.
good. So I'm sure you'll be facing a lot of different environments from New York to Milan. I know there are similarities, but going to Europe, especially to like an Italian speaking country, knowing a lot of English may not always be helpful, right? So can you tell me about be receptive to change, what that would mean to you?
Okay. Well, I guess listen to the people around you. Listen more, I guess, talk less, and go explore, just see things, and focus on what you want to see, and also I guess that's it, just to be involved with the community, but you don't have to be so you don't have to stand out all the time, so that's fine.
Okay, but do you want to stand out all the time?
No.
Well, anyway, I would challenge you to do a project when you get there about the city. And I
Yes.
think it would be a perfect timing for this project as well. So later on, we'll talk about a project based on OKRs. Maybe we could focus on you moving to Milan, this kind of opportunity to do a real project. And you'll be able to make your experience a more structured one. Okay,
Yeah.
and perhaps get more out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. So let's move on to making critical decision under time constraint. Who else has not spoken yet? Oh, Andrew. Andrew, I think is the perfect person to tell us what this means, because he's always full of project and a lot of deadlines. And I know he manages a lot of, what do you call it, jobs, right? Or tasks. Making critical decisions under time constraint. I know Andrew's job, he needs to help other people complete their tasks. So oftentimes the deadline is not under his control. So he's often very tied up with different tasks and different deadlines. So oftentimes when something goes wrong, or the processing of these different tasks, when it has a very critical time deadline to meet and something goes wrong, you need to make a very critical decision. Okay, so it's not just some jobs are that kind of nature. Oftentimes, the more important the job, the more important this kind of decision needs to be made. So please understand that when you need to do that, if you like the goal that you established for this job, please be aware that you need to overcome this kind of stress. So it's very important to face it and understand how to make critical decisions under time constraint and take it as a normal thing as well. Okay, so that's a challenge for very critical jobs that needs to help everybody complete their task before moving on to the next one. So this is a role that is very important in the critical path of project management. All right, let's move into diversity. Okay, when we talk about a very complex problem or a complex environment oftentimes is because the different stakeholders have different sets of values. So when we talk about, Alex is not here today, he's in urban planning. So when we talk about how we want to make the city look like, oftentimes we need to take into consideration not just of the governments or of the scholars or of the architects. We often need to take a look of the needs of different various type of habitants living in the city, the residents of the city. And they're different diversity, okay? And the needs of perhaps the mental disabled or the most normal type of people, but usually normal these days is not, it's very hard to define what normal is. So diversity is something we need to really have a practice of embracing. So people coming from different cultural backgrounds have very different ideas about what's important to them. So in order to plan very complex things, we need to have a sense of diversity, embrace it. And most of all, to embrace diversity, we need to have a bit of empathy so we can try to understand why people are coming from those places, okay, from these views of how to put things together. Okay, so that's very important. Embracing diversity is a very important quality or attitude that we need to grow ourselves in order to make things happen. So if we're always on the opposite side of different groups of people, it's very hard to form consensus and move on and complete a project. Okay, so also in terms of flexibility, we need to have the attitude of always looking for alternatives. That is, never leave yourself without a plan B in any situation. For example, you want to get married, right? Who's about to get married in this group? Probably not yet, okay? I don't know, but some people might be. Sometimes you might be, you're in a situation where you need to make your lifelong decisions, but then you don't want to go into any decision making without an alternative plan, because if you go into a situation without an alternative plan, you're leaving yourself with no backing up plans, okay? No choices but to go ahead. Sometimes that is very good, but other times it's very risky, and that affects your psychology, your thinking. So, for example, you get into a situation where you are committed to a marriage, and then without any backup plan, and then oftentimes you go into a marriage. After 3 years, you discover everything you thought about this marriage wrong, right? But then how do you get out of it? So if you don't have a plan about maybe financial independence or other routes, other alternatives, you may not be in a situation where you're being forced to make a bad decision, okay, or behave in such a way that you're going to lose out. Okay, so it's important for anything you do, even looking for a job, maybe not as serious as getting into a marriage. You always look for alternatives. You look for a backup plan. Okay, if this doesn't go well, what do I do next? And oftentimes that's very important and affects your psychological feelings about how you're going to be able to succeed in your choices. Okay. All right, ready for challenge. That's always important. Sometimes we're very complacent, and so we hate to even step out of our comfort zone and face challenges. Oftentimes we'll say, oh, that's just not my cup of tea. I just like to lay back whenever I can. So therefore, there is no way you're going to learn and move ahead if you're not ready for challenge, because life is always full of challenge, right? And lastly, you need to have an attitude about making reviews, not just because you finish something, you just that you just move on. Okay, so important thing is after anything that you've done, make a self-reflection and make a review, so that next time when you are in a similar situation again, you know how to make improvements, and you will not get into the same mistake again. Okay, so therefore you see the attitudes that we think it's important, and by the way, it's not written by me, it's actually it's a highlight of from many employer statistics. So these are the things that human resources put out in human resource magazines to say that it is important that we have these attitudes. So I'm putting it out today so that you have a very good summary of what it is. But as you can see, it's actually telling you a cycle, not just about attitudes, but from be able to embrace an opportunity, a challenge, to making room for improvement, especially on reviews. And it goes into a cycle. Okay, let's move on to the next page. After saying that, we then talk about leadership camp. Leadership training in劲Taipei program in the past, we focused on, actually, the first thing we tried to focus on before 2020 was the complex problem solving ability. And at time, since 2010 to 2020, a lot of the survey shows that complex problem solving is a very important attribute that that employers look for. 所以解决复杂问题的能力是很多这个雇主希望他的中高阶的主管，或者是当他们在找 management trainee 的时候，可以看得到的一个 ability. Okay, that is up to 2020. But since we're already in 2021, can anybody guess what's the number one important attribute that the employer is looking for these days? Anybody want to take a guess?
I can take a guess. I would say communication and collaboration.
Okay, that may be good, but the actual, I don't know if it'll surprise anybody, the actual number one trait right now is active listening. Can perhaps, Alicia, you take another wild guess why active listening now is more important than complex problem solving to be number one?
I would say that active listening is very important because you can learn a lot just by taking a minute to really absorb and grasp what people are trying to tell you, and it lets you take on new perspectives.
Yep, I think
to further enforce
looking back, yeah, I think looking back in your generation, because 2021 for most of you would be probably just about to go into the workforce, right? So your generation is probably the generation that is already born into the internet, and it's doing a lot of multitasking things every day between cell phone and computer screens and the real world. So oftentimes we will see a lot of families actually have to communicate through their iPhones and iPads in order to tell their kids what to do, or just come for the dinner, to come to the dinner table, right? Because everybody's all in their room, nobody's really listening to each other. So I think active listening could be because that's the way this generation is being brought up. Now, before that, complex problem solving is because the internet perhaps simplify a lot of things, especially in communications, to make it more efficient. And therefore, it attracted a lot of attention of people in that era, probably maybe 10 years before that, before your period, the X generation. They tend to go for things that they could respond quickly. For example, you go to the social medias and Facebook, and people just love spending time over there, sharing things like food or something spontaneous. They could respond back. When it comes to complex problem solving, it often involves different stakeholders, and they need to think about different things, such as put in the position of different groups of people and be able to solve something. So that's where complex problem solving comes from, is because you need to involve different stakeholders, and they all have different sets of values. Before you can align all these values, it's very important to even come to a concession. So that is because in order to solve complex problems, you really need to be able to handle human problems. You be able to connect people and be able to put people in the same room and work towards a goal, or to work towards work towards a goal without their differences. So it is a very challenging management skill, handling people. So at that time, before 2020, now the up to that time, complex problem solving has been the number one attribute that employers would love to have. But I suppose, I'm just guessing, of course, I suppose maybe some of those problems can be solved by AIs. So, but moving on, we will see that active listening would be the number one employer's choice. Active listening to me is very important because it allows you to think, just like Alicia is saying. It allows you to really, when you do an active listening versus just pleasurely listening, it might just go in one year and go out the other year. But when you're active listening, you're actually thinking what's being inputted into your brain, and you need to digest it and perhaps produce a meaningful thought, which can then go into your deep memory and then retain it from there. So it's important to do active listening because it is still a very important part of human function, to be able to absorb and put into a process and then keep it in your deep memory. Okay, and you're right, other than complex problem solving and now active listening, everything else on this chart is also very important. And they were once upon a time, maybe was the number one attribute. But whether they're number one or number two or number 10, I think they're all very important. So let's go through this very quickly. Okay, active listening, because it's not being number one. Right now, we're trying to use podcasts as a way of our communication tool in our training, versus before this year, we've been using videos to train our people to express themselves and communicate to the public. So, and whether it's podcasts or making a video or making a speech on TED, all these are communication skills, which are very important. Okay, so these three elements of either be active listening, complex problem solving, or communication, they all deal with some kind of communication and process of the brain. The others, such as feedback, delegation, flexibility, these are very team building type of attributes, which are important. So you will have people that are not very flexible, because they will say, for example, if you're the team leader and you need to run a department of 5 to 10 people, and you have very good workers who are very strong in their own areas. And then oftentimes you will need to delegate. So delegate, you might be able to delegate because of your position, but sometimes you need to delegate because you acquire a project or something you want to improve upon. So the delegation may come not because of the nature of the job description itself, but because you need to do something together with the group, and you need to align an objective and make it happen, make some things happen so that you can get some key results. And oftentimes what happens is that when people are in a group, there's a certain type of group behaviors that happens. And it's important to talk about feedback, is because without feedback, proactively feedback or periodic feedback, it would depend on the style of the leader, of course, but then any feedback is a very important feedback. Even like we are a group, okay? When I post something out in our line chat group, I may say, oh, please respond, whether we want to have a meeting today or a meeting tomorrow. I would actually assume that you would read it and give me a response. That's an important feedback, because without your response, I won't be able to move on. I wouldn't know whether we're going to have a meeting today or tomorrow if none of you feedback and say, you know, I can't make it for today, but I can do it for some other days. So these are, when different people are grouped together, it is important that we all get feedback to each other. We give feedback to the leader, or we give feedback to each other so that we can share and be able to move on. Okay, so it's important to learn about feedback. It's the same thing when you're in the office. You go to an office, you're working, and then you get, maybe due to the nature of your work, you may get 10 to 100 emails per day. You need to figure out a way to manage this very effectively. So regardless of how you want to feedback, sometimes without the necessary, the adequate amount of time, you may want to just choose a certain way of giving feedback. For example, some people, you might just say, oh, I acknowledge I received this. I'll get back to you maybe within 3 days or something. So the other side of people know that at least you are receiving the message and they know you're on top of it. So it's like saying the ball is now in your court, or I know the ball is in my court. So acknowledge. Right? So it's important to give feedback to your group so that your group leader or the group as a whole will know where they stand at this moment in time in the project. And then flexibility. Oftentimes, people hate to be changed or told what to do. So in order to have flexibility, in order to be able to move ahead and achieve their goals, it's important everybody in the team understand that flexibility is important. And it's because our environment or the nature of the game changes all the time. So change is norm, right? We just discussed that. So because of change, we need to make alternative plans. And because we make alternative plans, we need to have certain flexibility to change our job. So accepting changes is not because it's, don't try to think because this person loves to make changes to my life, try to make my life difficult. My senior leader try to make my life difficult. Try to think of it as, why are we doing this? Are we aligning the objectives together so that because of certain change, we are all in this team ready for some flexible backup plans, and we're ready to make changes so that we can reach our goals. Okay, so important to understand flexibility. Now, the rest of the stuff about trustworthiness, commitment, accountability, motivation, and positivity, these are all things that are positive things that we need to have when we are in a group, okay? And these three particular attributes are very, very important. And let me just kind of say it quickly, like trustworthiness. If you promise something to someone or or people look up to you to deliver something, you must make sure you do it fairly and make them feel that you are really backing them. So it's important you create a trustworthiness within your team. Now, commitment and accountability is like saying, if you committed to be on this meeting, then you should make a note and make sure that you're on this meeting on time. And you expect that of your team members, right? If you are a team member, then if you commit something, you should try to reach your commitment and complete it. So this is called accountability, right? So anything you do in life, you should have this notion of, before you commit anything, don't just say, I'll come to this meeting and never show up. Don't do that. Okay. If you are committed to, if you're committed to, and to even go to a party, don't just say, oh, maybe I'll go, but then, I'll be late for 15 minutes or maybe more. You let the host know about it so that, when they make arrangements for you, make extra, seats for you, it's costing them money and preparation work. So you must understand that you need to be committed and also accountable when you're in a society or in the job situation. Okay, motivation and positivity. Motivation is something very hard for others to do, and positivity as well. So it is something you need to learn through maybe reading books, maybe interacting with people. Maybe the more you interact, the more you do things with other people and be able to self-reflect. I think that a self-driven positive attitude will go a long way and motivate a person. So it's no use for your mom and dad or others to keep pushing you, right? Because that will never work. But it's important for you to create a positive attitude about yourself, about the goals that you set up for yourself, and to motivate yourself to go forward. And last thing I did not touch upon is creativity. This is something that creativity for me is not just be able to do arts very beautifully or create things. Creativity is be able to think out of the box and under time pressure. So when you say try to be creative, it takes a lot of practice, okay? And we're not always perfect. But then going back to that cycle again. So every single time we need to be creative and it wasn't a perfect solution, then we need to self-reflect and come back. So this is what we train to do in leadership camp. And because of time constraint, usually this course would take at least about an hour to 2 hours for everybody to participate and to comment on how they feel these attributes can work on themselves, or whether or not they're doing well or not doing so well in certain abilities or attributes. Okay, so let me just finish that because we're now 22 minutes past the clock. So I will try to give Allison a bit more time to talk about project management. But is everybody with me so far? Am I talking too fast or are we okay? Let me just ask James in Taipei. James, 你还在线上吗？
还在。
我会不会讲太快了？
有一点点，但是大部分是听得懂的。
好，可以，很棒。那是这样子哈，因为我们今天的时间也有限，所以我就是很快的把这些 attribute 讲一下。那我也很欢迎，就是说你们在台北的 especially， 就是如果我们下一次有这方面的 training 机会，你们想要来参加，你们可以就来 sign up 哈。因为通常的话，我们可能会讲更多一点，让大家更同时参与来解释说你们对这些重要的自我的能力跟那个态度，学习的态度的解析跟训练的这个了解哈，然后才开始进去你们自己平常 常日子的 project 里面，比如说你可以以你平常在做的事情来反映在我们在讨论的这些事情上面，然后我们可以用来讨论，然后让你会自己觉得说，我平常在做的这个事情，哎，我是不是以后可以用这个角度来想这个事情？那事情会很容易顺利的向前，而不会一直卡在那里。OK， 好。那接下来我是不是就很快的先把 Allison about to 介绍的事情，我大致很快的讲一下，然后我交给 Allison。OK， 所以 Allison 呢，在我们一般过去我们在做这个劲台北计划的时候呢，我们会 go into different schools or different groups， 然后跟他们解释怎么做一个 project management。那 usually 我们通常可以做到3个小时的这个 lecture 加 workshop， 但是因为在线上，我们第一次 try 在线上，我们就是用 newsletter 这样子弄。好，所以这个30分钟内，Allison 会把一般的流程project management 是需要想哪一些方面的流程怎么做，然后在这个过程里面，我们需要做哪一些工具的东西来协助我们做完这个 project。好，然后呢，什么是 critical path？ 好 ，versus 我们刚才讲的 critical thinking 啊这种东西，什么是 critical path？ 那我们可以怎么样去做？然后呢，最后就是一个 project 不断的，我们都是有一个循环，好，叫做 PDCA 的循环，那是什么？然后最后就是 project 的讨论里面，我们最重要的是一个叫做 OKR 的东西。那 OKR 的东西它是 very much used by 那个Silicon Valley 里面，因为这个 author of Objective Key Results， 他是以前在那个 Intel Andy Grove 的旁边做事的人，他后来离开了 Intel， 他变成很多像 Google 啊，像很多大公司的顾问的时候，他就是用这个 OKR 的激励方式，从 Intel 那边学习到的，做成归纳出一个叫做 OKR 的激励方式来做这个 project 的一个方法。好，它不是像 KPI 是一个传统的一个绩效的指标，它是一个就是没有定期的一个 routine， 想要用一个特别的 project 要来完成事情的时候，特别对于新创的公司非常有用。所以我们就教这个是什么样的东西，怎么运用来对齐我们大家每一个人在 team 里面的目标。OK， so I'll let Allison take over from here. Okay, Allison, it's all yours.
Okay, can I have the PowerPoint for project management?
Yeah. 喂，你可以把那个 PowerPoint
谢谢。Okay, so I think before we go into project management and OKR, I would like to give you a brief idea why we need to learn this. Okay, because like Agnes just mentioned, that there are a lot of things that happen, you know, without it's not within our plan, and imperfection is usually, you know, like the norm in the world. So there are a lot of like issues that will come up in your work or in your life, and to solve those, you know, like not every day, you know, all the routines that come up in your life, you need to use project management skills. So project management is to help you solve issues that do not happen every day. And it's very useful once you get a grasp of the spirit of this management style. And it will help you greatly in your work and also in how you deal with, you know, things in your life. And OKR is a management tool that we use to manage things that are not, you know, routine tasks. You know, like if you need to do an innovation somewhere, or you need to, you start a new business, or even, like do something that's new, then OKR would be the perfect tool for you to, be aligned with your objective and try to get the most out of your work by achieving the key results. So anybody have any experience in doing any projects before? So anybody in the team here? 大家有做过专案吗？
Alicia, I believe, has some experience. We're going to ask her to share hers next time.
Yeah.
Right. So Alicia, you did projects before, right?
Yes, I have. Over the past month, I was a participant in the KPMG Ideation Challenge, which was a pitch competition. So that was one situation where I had to demonstrate very efficient project management. I don't know if if I should wait till our next meeting to talk about that, if that was what was planned.
No, it's okay. If you're
yeah.
ready to go if you're ready to go, we'll do it right after Allison's presentation. I'm caught with my tongue. Yeah, after Allison's presentation, if we all have a bit of time, if you're ready, we could just talk about it as well.
Okay, sure. It really doesn't matter. We can do it now, or we could do it next meeting as well. Maybe it would be better next meeting actually, so I could maybe have more time to talk.
Well, the idea is that I would like to have a simple idea of, how experienced you are in project management at this point. So anybody else has done any project before? Cherise, James?
In terms of schooling, I'm involved in an extracurricular association. I don't know if anybody else wants to speak on this, but if nobody else had anything off the top of their head, I'm the vice president of my school's marketing association. So I overlook executives who are in charge of external affairs, marketing, IT, and I help them make sure that they're executing their tasks so we can deliver various events. So that's just something that I've been doing this year. Perfect.
What about other people? Monica, anybody?
I think Monica.
Oh, okay. So I've done projects. Managing, there's a lot of teamwork. So I work with, well, in school with engineers, with designers, and at work, I'm not a manager, so I work with product managers. And that's my experience. Well, yeah.
Great.
What specific you want to hear about? Oh, okay. Never mind. Bye.
Well, yeah, these are project experiences. Yeah, very good. So anybody else? Benjamin, James? The guys in the team? No?
The project, I don't.
可能没做过。
对，我没做过。
或者是你其实你有做，但是你其实不知道它是一个 project。有可能。
虽然说是有做过，只不过那个算是小的专案吧。
哦，小的专案。
对。
Okay.
没有说准备很多这样子。
Okay. Thanks for sharing. So it's good to know that, some of you have some experiences in project management already. Even though you're not the manager itself, you already have some idea of what a project is. So let me briefly explain to you what project is. So you can see that a project is to complete a non-routine task. So the task has to be non-routine. If it happens on a daily basis, like, like the, your usual work, then it's not a project. It's to do something that's different from what you do every day. And usually you do this project with a unique process output, or engage, in definition, organization, employment, planning, and control. And usually the project comes with restricted conditions, such as time, resource, manpower, and you need to deliver a certain output or a certain result to meet the needs of the project. Okay, so if you're doing anything that's not like a routine work, and you need to deliver a result within a limited or restricted condition, then you're probably doing a project. Okay, let's see what's next. So before you even have a project, right, you need to actually start, a project. So how would a project be started? Okay, you would find an unsatisfied needs, and then you would try to solve a certain problem, and then you create a project. So in order to solve some problem or improve something or deliver a result, you create a project. But you cannot do a project on your own. You need a team. Okay, so then you need to recruit the team members and to be with you, throughout the project. And you need to appoint a project manager or a project leader. And you need to think about what are the stakeholders of this project. So first you need to build a team and start a project and build a team. Okay. And so after you have started a project with a team, then the process goes like this in a real project management situation. A leader would lead the team. And in our case, you will be mentored to deliver the OKR, which we will explain later. And then during the project, you will use the project management skills and learn how to, evaluate yourselves or the team on what you do good and what you do not do so good, and how you can do better in the future. And the core value of this project management is to be bold and don't be afraid to make mistakes and learn to solve problems under controlled risk. Okay, so these are the basically, the thing about project management is about leadership and about evaluation and about OKR. So to understand the purpose of the project is very important before you even start planning for it. You need to understand why this project is here and what kind of objective does this project wants to achieve. Okay, and does this project have the same objective as the big objective of the organization? So for instance, if you're assigned a project that wants you to, sell a very a certain type of product to the market, and you would want to know, what the objective the organization is before you set the project objective. So if the organization is into recruiting new consumers, then you will probably need to try to get new consumers through selling this shampoo or this, this product as your objective. Okay, so you have to align the objective, what you do, with the organization. Is everybody with me so far? Okay. All right. And then you need to align the deliverables. So it is very important that you align all the details by using a project, what do you call this? 专案计划书. Okay, like it's like a project
Planner.
计划书叫什么?
Plan.
计划 a plan, yeah, like a project plan, right? So it's like you write a project plan, and the project plan is actually a communication tool for you to communicate, your project objective with the organization, to align the objectives, and also communicate with the team. Okay, so like we're talking about you being like a leader of a project team now. Okay, so if you're a leader of a project team, then you will write a project plan to communicate what do you want to deliver as a team, okay, the objectives to the organization. And you also communicate the objectives to your team through this project plan. Okay, so within the project plan, the important thing in there, you have to be very clear about the key results and the resources that you need to spend to complete this project. And there will be more details as we go along later. Okay, so once you have aligned your project objectives with the organization and with your team, and you need to start doing them, right? So in your plan, you need to have a very clear list of tasks so that everybody knows what they're supposed to do and know, like on the same page on their functions and the timeline. But there are always like many tasks that you cannot cover all on yourself. So you need other people's inputs when you write those tasks. So it's good to have like a group meeting, or even, consult people who are more experienced in, similar project about what tasks needs to be laid out and thought about. Okay, so listing out all the tasks for all the, with timeline and with resources is very important for a complete project plan. And also, because every project requires resources and it involves risks, so that it's very important to also have plan for the resources that you need for a project, including time, place, manpower, budget, and even sometimes weather, or for example, the COVID-19 situation we have now, or even government regulations, or any other, unexpected surprises. So when you plan for a project, just as Agnes just mentioned, you always need a plan B, or sometimes you need more than plan B, you need plan C or D. So for example, if we want to interview like a certain person, then it is important to take into account their scheduling, or how busy they are, or if they travel a lot. So maybe you will need to, have a backup plan if this person, doesn't show up on the scheduled date. Or take our example, for instance, that we would like to, invite you guys over to Taipei if, the pandemic gets better, but it's a lot of uncertainties in the future. So that will be like a risk that we need to take account into for our training here. Okay, so resources and risks needs to be evaluated and thought about for each project. And here is the so to connect the tasks that you need to do in the project, you need to find the most critical path in your project. So there will be probably like 100 tasks, that you need to finish before you can come to to deliver the objective of your project. But it is only 1 or 2 critical paths that you need to grasp. Okay, you cannot, like, these are like super important that you have to deliver it, right? So once you identify the critical path in your project, then you can prioritize, all the tasks accordingly. So for some tasks that are not in the critical path, they can be, you can find other plans for that, or you can, compromise a bit. But there are some things that is so critical in this project that cannot be changed. So you have to identify them and make sure that they are okay before everything else, is confirmed. Okay, so for example, if we're hosting a speech, if this project is to host a speech, so probably the speakers will be the most critical path. The time for the speakers to show up and the topics, okay, of what they're going to talk about are probably the most critical path. But, what kind of snacks that we're going to have for the speech, or what kind of the way of their presentation is probably not as important. Okay, so there will be some things that are most critical and some are less critical. So you have to identify the priorities and confirm the critical path first before you spend your time dealing with the other details. Any question about that slide? Okay, and then we move on to some of the like the little tools to manage your projects, because there are many projects, like many task lists, many details, including who has to do it, by when. So we usually make it easier by using an Excel chart or even a Gantt chart, okay, to make things very clear. And a Gantt chart is a very good and useful tool for management, so that it helps everybody understand that what everybody's doing on a timeline and how relevant their works are to each other. And it's also easier for the managers to see, if something goes wrong, then the other person can help, by reviewing the Gantt chart. And it's also very important to do a follow-up meeting on a regular basis. Mostly it's on a weekly basis to understand how things are going and what are the important things next for the upcoming week, and what are the issues that the team has, and so people can discuss and solve them together. And so like many times people face problems that are very hard to solve during their project. And so if it's not like very everybody has different reactions when they, you know, have like really like a lot of unresolved issues. Some people would just, you know, hide, you know, and just pretend that nothing happens, or just turn off their phone or disappear, right? And it's not like, yeah, it happened to us before, like some of the students just disappear because they just don't know what to do. So, but I think that, it's good to be, and it helps you to learn actually to face the problems if there's actually one. Okay, so it's good to have a good communication habit, that if you have an issue and you can't solve it on your own, it's better that you just tell the team and discuss, right? Or you can share with your mentors and ask for help. But when you ask for help, it's also a good practice for your skills to also think about more than one solutions before you ask for help. So that means you also can think independently and you try to solve the problem and before you ask for help. So that's a very good practice for your work competency, and also for you being a future leader. Okay, and these are just the just some management tools of how you manage your spending by using a chart to record the actual spending and the plan. Okay. Next, please. And here is the PDCA cycle that is very important, that you probably do every day already. But it always makes you more conscious of what you're doing by seeing it in words. So P means plan, D means do, C means check, and A means action. So what we do every day, we start from plan, and then we do, and then we check what we did, and then we take corrective actions, and then we revise our plan, and then we do, and then we check again, and then we take corrective actions. So it's a cycle for perfection, right? So every day we do this all the time, but we need to think about it when we do a project, because it involves a whole team of people. So everybody may be planning or doing or checking or action on different things. So it's very important to be a leader that puts everybody together on the same page, that everybody does the same planning, do everything in sync and check, according to the same standard, and take corrective actions within, the time, So that's the thing. That's a very important concept, okay, to actually bear in mind when you're doing a project and when you're leading a team. Okay, and evaluation is also very important when you're learning project management, because by evaluating the whole process and evaluating what you did good and what you did not so good, and how you can improve yourself in the future, is actually very good learning. It's learning by doing. It's not learning from books, right? So this is the core concept in our training, is that you do through project-based learning. It's not class-based learning. So evaluation would be a very important and very helpful tool for you to do during our training. Okay, so that's the brief, very, very brief summary of what project management is about. Anybody have any questions? Okay, I'm going to use like a brief 5 minutes to run through what is OKR. Okay, so O is objective, objectives, and KR is key results. So it's very commonly used in like Google and Intel, and these are super innovative companies. So they're here to help managers set the objectives for new initiatives. Okay. Can I move on to the next slide? Okay, so why do you use OKR, right? First, we need to align the objectives, right? And then second, we need to get a support from the team, right? Because once everybody agrees with the objectives, then they will, you know, spend all the resources and all the efforts to support this objective so that we don't waste anybody's time and energy. And adaptability, that makes what you do every day very flexible, because the environment or the paradigm can change every day. So, you know, the way you tackle the issues can differ from day to day. But if you have a very clear objective in front of you, then it doesn't matter. You just need to steer towards your objective. And however you want to deliver that objective can be different every day. It doesn't matter, as long as you know where you're going. And also we use OKR to track you know, the progress of, you know, each week or, you know, on a regular basis. So we track the progress by checking how is the key results going. So we know like where we want to go, but we also want to see some, you know, results coming out. So we track that using the KR. And the objectives can be also quite aspirational if you set it right. Okay, it can be something that's to change the world, or, you know, to make the earth, you know, greener or something, you know, so that actually can be quite motivational or inspirational to the whole team if you use it correctly. And I believe some of you have heard of KPI, which is the Key Performance Index. It's a very traditional, you know, management tool used for, you know, delivering targets or results. And it's more like from top to down. So it's like a top-down instruction when you use the KPI method. And so KPI is more like, okay, you need to achieve, you know, like $10 million sales this year. Okay, that's probably a very common KPI for most companies. And if you deliver, and your company will tell you, like, if you deliver 100% of your KPI, you can get like certain amount of bonus, you know, as your you know, as a result. And so the company doesn't care about how you deliver the sales target. They just care about if you deliver it. Okay. So the process doesn't matter that much, you know, so it's one thing, right? But OKR is different. OKR, unlike the traditional KPI method, it actually is a both way, you know, target setting. So for example, the organization or the company will tell you what they want, you know, what is the objective for them this year. And then the manager will think about how they can help the company or to help the team to to achieve the objective. So they will think about the approach. So it's like a two-way communication when they set the target together. And then the company will tell, and then the discussion will go on between the organization and the leaders. And then they will come up with an objective, like a mutual objective between the organization and the team leader. And then this target will be agreed, on both sides, not given from the top to the bottom. And the evaluation will be done quarterly because the organization cares about the process. The organization wants to know if, the objective is still, given the objective, what about the key results? Are the key results, getting closer to where we're going towards the objective? Okay. And the results sometimes involves bonus and sometimes they don't. So it's not necessarily just only money. Sometimes it's about, deliver, an objective that we want to achieve, a big goal that we want to go to. And so the advantage for using OKR is that, it's very obvious, is that the team members can think on their own, how they can help the organization to grow or to, accomplish certain objective. And it's very motivating for, the, people who are independent thinkers and who have motivations to be a better self and to, make a change. So OKR is very good for that purpose, especially when you want to do new initiatives that nobody has done before. So there's no right or wrong answers. So employees will think, out of the box and find new things to try. Okay. But there are also some disadvantage for using OKR, is that if you don't use the tool, properly, then it's pretty hard for the employees to, to understand, what the organizational objective is. And the employees may do things that are not aligned with the organizational goals. And also, because sometimes this evaluation system is not linked to bonus, employees may lack motivation, or may just become quite laid back if they're not driven by money. So some organizations actually link bonus with OKR to fix this issue. So but still the core concept of OKR is not just for money. It's actually to drive, really motivated employees to, make a change, to do something different. And KPI has very obvious disadvantages, that the organization doesn't care about how the employees deliver the results. They only care if the results are delivered. And sometimes the process can be a mess. The results may be good, but in the long run, this organization will suffer because, it's probably, the process is probably not the right one, and it's probably gonna, hurt in the long run. Okay. So these are just some of the things that we, so I think we're running out of time here, but I think you can read the slides for more details about how to set up the objectives. And what else do we have? And how to set up the key results. They have to be smart, and okay, and we need to do OKR meetings so that we are on top of the progress and we know what issues everybody have and how to solve them together. and communicate. Okay, and there are some issues that, okay, FAQs for the OKR. You can just see, you can read them when you're in your spare time. And if you have any questions, we can discuss in our next meeting. Okay, so I think that's what I have to say about project management and OKR. And I'll give the floor back to Agnes.
Thank you, Allison. That was very perfect in 30 minutes. I have something to add though, and Wen, please stay on this page. Okay, stay on this, during the training, this quote. During the training, I will try to ride the waves that scare me. And you will only grow if you step out of your comfort zone. Feeling pain is the only way to personal development and growth, which is the opposite of complacency. Okay, I think it's a very good an excerpt from the Commonwealth magazine group. So before I wrap up, I want to say two things about OKR and critical thinking and critical path. Okay, now OKRs, oftentimes when you first get into it, especially those who's not been familiar with it, please try to not make others' key results to become your objective. With that example, I will use something very familiar to those in Taipei. Okay, and I'll say this in Chinese. 很多的台湾的学生，他们如果刚刚学习这个东西的时候，我举一个例子好了，就是说你的家庭如果是你的组织的话，很多时候你的家庭的重要的 key result 给你要去考大学，他就是说你最好是能够考上什么大学，那个是他的 key result。那往往呢，那个 key result 就变成你的 objective。OK， 就是说，很多人他去考大学，他也许是跟他的 parent、他的 family align， 他的 key result 是这个 result， 可是呢，那个 objective 是，就是家长希望的 key result 就变成你的 objective， 这个是不对的，好。Objective 的 alignment 就是说，当你要对齐好 objective 的时候，你们在一开始就要去讨论，你家长希望你的 objective 跟你想要的 objective， 你们能不能更 align 在一起？那个就是 alignment。就像说我们如果是在联考试制度下的教育，很多时候你的 objective 是变成是考，比如说我的考试要100分，那个不是 objective， 那是你的 key result。OK， 所以 objective 跟 key result 在定的时候，很容易把别人的 key result 变成你的 objective。你必须要去 align， 就是我的 objective 是不是那个组织或者是我的 family 或者谁的 key result。好，不是要变成。不是要把他的 key result 变成你的 objective， 而是大家的 objective 要 align 是在一起的。就是说我想要让我的孩子变成一个有用的人，或是我的孩子是有天分的，要做一个事情的啊。然后呢，这个现在呢，我有别的事情了，现在我有别的了解了，有关于他的未来，所以呢，就是那个就是跟小孩子沟通好，我们一起的 key result 是什么，然后才可以去帮就是等于是有一个共同的 key objective， 然后才可以去跑出来一个 key result， 就是不是用别人的 key result 变成你的 objective， 这是我觉得需要去训练的一个地方。Okay, I hope I made that very clear. I'm not sure if it's that clear enough. I think this needs a little bit of practice. I said that because sometimes we go into different groups and we hope that they have an objective of doing a project, but then they try to guesstimate that actually their objective should be my key results that I'm expecting of them. So they totally don't understand why we're even doing this or the purpose of doing this. And that's important because if you don't have an objective that aligns with the institution's objective, and you're just using their key result, there's no difference between an OKR and a KPI, okay? Because you're using the anticipated institution's key result to be your objective. And that is exactly like you're doing a test and your teacher always expects you to do certain, of course, if you don't pass the course, if you don't get 60, you don't pass the course, right? So that's an important level that you must pass. So that's a key result from somebody else that became your objective. So you have to at least pass the course. And that kind of objective usually do not drive anyone. It's just a little ceiling there. Okay, so please be ready to do lots of practice going forward and try to keep this in mind. Do not let others' key result become your objective. Try to understand what the objective really is or are. And that is important because when there's changes to the environmental issue or to the outside risk coming that is challenging to the results, then you'll be able to, based on the objective, the real objective, to be able to make variations, changes, and come up with new ideas in plan B and C and D, because you have the right objective. So you do not have to stick to the original objective when it comes to the changes that affects the original key results. Okay, sometimes you have to make changes to things because of the changes due to, like what Allison was saying, could be a regulation change, could be the speaker not wanting or not be able to show up at all for an event, etc. So what is the objective that we're trying to do? So having a seminar may not always be an objective. That may be just an outcome. So what exactly is the objective? So it's important to identify your objective versus other people's key results to come up with your own key results. Okay, that's one point I want to make clear. Number 2 point, which I did not make clear, was especially for those in Taipei, the word critical thinking, for example, is often translated into 批判性思考, critical thinking. But as you can see, with critical path and critical thinking, the word critical actually means 关键. So I like to always translate critical thinking into 关键性的思考. And critical path is also 关键的路径. Why is it critical? Critical means without this particular point, the whole outcome would be completely go or no go or a different outcome altogether. So a point of critical thinking and a point in critical path is very, very important because it makes it, this is the place where there is an important point to make clear in order to move forward. So critical is more important than criticizing. Okay, that's something I want all our participants to understand, that especially in Taiwan, it's often translated as 批判性, but critical doesn't mean 批判, doesn't mean that you have to be very critical of, you have to be able to criticize things in a very critical way to be critical thinking. You can be critically thinking if you can identify those ideas within a certain event or things or in an article or in a story that makes the story very much of its importance, or of things that ideas that could change or influence the public. Those are critical thinking. So be able to highlight those thinking is a critical thinking practice, and be able to align or be able to pace out or path out the critical path for an event or a project is an important practice, because you know what is the most important thing that you need to complete before, the most important task you need to complete before you can even call it a successful project. Okay, so those are two things I want to be able to let you take away today. I think whatever reading you will come out from the extended reading that we provided in the newsletter, I hope you at least pick these 2 points up. Thank you. Okay, so with that, we're gonna do a little bit of advertisement for our next meeting, which I've already put in our chat room. Next meeting, we will be wrapping this session up, but because the next module after this will be my city, and we'll put out a newsletter talking about how to look at my city. So for the end of this module, we hope to share, or for you to share with us, if we're going to do something about my city, what kind of project we could put together, and what are the OKRs we want to use for your project. So all of you can think about utilizing what we taught today, and how to come up with a project about Taipei, about Toronto, about Vancouver, about Cupertino, or about, by that time, for perhaps Monica, Milan, what kind of project you want to learn about Milan. And then we could think about what's your objective, how long the period. We hope to be within two months, okay, or less. And it'll be a project that you could pull together when they're your local resources among friends or families to come up with this project. So we'll talk about this My City OKRs for this particular project you want to do about your city. And it could be of different aspect. You could extend your interest from the trends to talk about how it works in your city, or you could talk about other areas, also about city trends for my city. So we could do that by the end of this module, and we can all talk about that. And I don't know if we should vote on whether we go on for another 30 minutes, let Alicia talk about her project, or do we have enough time to do it today, or should we do that at the beginning of our presentation for the OKR projects next time? Can we have a vote on this? Okay, let me put it on a negative way. Is anybody in a rush to leave this room right now? Please raise your hand or speak out. Okay, if not,
I think I have to leave by 11:30.
11:30, okay, so we have about 15 minutes. That should be enough for Alicia to describe her kickoff, her KIC project, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Cherise, why don't you stay on, and if you need to leave, just drop off. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
okay.
All right, there you go, Alicia.
All right, one moment. I'm just gonna pull up my presentation so I can remember what to go off of. That'll take a couple seconds. Okay.
Okay, while she's doing that, let me just do a little bit of explanation on the expand reading. On the expand reading, I think there's some very useful tools which I have pulled for you through videos, such as interview skills, etc., etc. I hope you have time to look at it. And there's a book that I would recommend called Deep Work. It's to combat all your work now being very fragmented. And this book talks about how you should spend time doing something very into depth. Okay, there you go, Alicia.
All right, thanks. So like I mentioned before, over the past month, I was selected to participate in the KPMG ideation challenge. So basically how it worked was we were placed in a team with 6 other members. We were chosen at random. There was 4 business students from all across Ontario, which is Toronto, and 2 STEM students, which gave us the opportunity to, have different skill sets work together on creating an innovative ideation. So basically, we were put in a team of 6 people, and the theme was to create a product or an idea in any field that helps leverage the challenge brought to us by the COVID-19 pandemic. So basically, this was a 2-day pitch competition. The first day, we were put in our teams and we went through workshops, which was really nice. We learned how to come up with a pitch, how to collaborate with the team, how to distribute roles to efficiently manage our time. So that was really interesting because I learned a lot about time management. I learned a lot about working under time constraints and pressure as well. So those were some of the things that I took away from the first day of the workshops. Second day, we had to present it. So we really did not have a lot of time at all. We only had 1 day to work with our group to come up with our product and then pitch it. So the second day, we had to present in front of a panel of judges, which consisted of KPMG staff. For example, one of our judges was a senior accountant that worked at the KPMG Toronto office. And the other judge was the head of data science for KPMG Canada, which was extremely intimidating, having to present in front of somebody that qualified and knowledgeable. So, but it was definitely very, it was a great experience to be able to say that I was able to present in front of somebody that was, had a level of mastery in that field. So that was really fun. Basically, our product, it's a bit complicated to explain like in 10 minutes, so I'll try my best to explain it quickly. So basically, our product is a portal called Integrate that helps small to medium-sized enterprises digitally transform. So because of the COVID-19 pandemic, small to medium-sized enterprises were struggling really, transforming everything to virtual. Whether that is, like dealing with the employees, like how are they going to work? How are you going to communicate with them? How are you going to run operations smoothly? Stuff like that. So what our platform does is it helps them identify their pain points, and we will guide them towards another digital consulting agency to help them come to their solution. Whether that's from Salesforce, which is a marketing consulting platform, or other platforms that can help them digitally transform. So it was a very complex process. As a business student, I am not too focused on data analytics and advanced data structures. It's not my forte. So I really wish I had somebody in the STEM field in my group explain this to you, but I hope that was pretty straightforward, like what our product was. But it was really interesting to work with people from all around Ontario and present in front of a panel of judges. That was really fun.
So altogether, how many days did you have?
So the first day was to go through workshops and develop our idea as a team. And the second day, in the morning, we presented our solution. So we really only had 1 day, and the following morning we had to present. So it was under very, tight time restrictions.
And everybody was from Toronto in your team?
Everybody was, so basically how it works is this was the KIC regional competition. So it was only people like in my region, so in around Toronto. And whoever wins that, they get to compete nationally. Unfortunately, we did not win, but you know, we really tried, but unfortunately we didn't. So that was a bummer, but
But did you get, what did you gain from it?
I would say it was a really valuable experience. It was just the people, like my team members, they were all great. I made some great friends. Like we still talk now, even after, you know, only spending 2 days together. So it was really great in that sense that I made some new friends. I also learned how to manage my time under very strict time constraints and under a lot of pressure, having to present in front of such intimidating judges. So it really taught me, like, you can't mess up, like the pressure is there, like it's really there. So
what about the communication ability? Did this experience help you think about your way of communication, how to do better?
I think in the sense that it was virtual, I tried my best to work to develop my communication skills, but I feel like if it was in person, I would have really learned a lot more because I would have been, you know, in front of all those people actually. But the fact that it was virtual, I felt like a bit like I was an advantage because I couldn't know that I'm just talking to a screen. I'm not actually standing in front of all those people talking. So it's an advantage, but it's also a disadvantage because once I eventually have to, I won't have that experience as to if it was already in person.
So to communicate through a video call, it's definitely very different from being in person to communicate face to face with a panel of judges or professionals.
100%, because when I'm speaking to a screen, it's so much easier. But like if I would be in person, I would be like shaking. I would be so nervous.
Oh.
As to like talking to a screen, I just feel so much more confident speaking. So that's I don't know if anybody else thinks the same, if they think communicating virtually has less pressure to it. I don't know if that's just me, but that's definitely something that I've noticed.
Oh, really? That's interesting, because I would think if you are a people person, you would love to be in front of the real panel and not just talking to a screen. For me, I feel very strained by panels or the screen. I mean, because I feel like you guys are very far away, especially when you know how your message always pop up on the side of the screen when there's somebody who wants to message you, and it will pop up these texts. Those are very distracting to me when I'm trying to talk to you guys over the screen, because I see things coming up. I would say something very different from what I intend to say. Anyway, yeah. So I don't want to take up your 15 minutes, but I think your experience is a very valuable one, like you said. And I think, I hope what we learned today will be able to help you if you have another experience like this going forward, to rethink about all the stuff that we went through. I know you talk about, you know, pain points in project management, or when you come to think about your objectives. Pain point is a very important thing to think about when you try to resolve problems or issues. So I think these are all very helpful ideas for you to do projects. And I hope that by studying a little bit more with the links that we provided in the newsletter, I hope all of you be able to benefit from all these presentation today. Do you have anything to share with us before we wrap up? So we have about 4 minutes left. No? Good. Okay, so we'll try to wrap up and hope that we will be online and share about what is the best suitable time for you guys for the next meeting, and hope that we will be all ready for telling everybody about what our objective and key result is going into the next module, which is My City, what we want to talk about and present about the about Taipei, about Toronto, about Vancouver and Cupertino, or wherever else. Oh, and Milan. I think Milan will be a very interesting one for everybody. Yeah. So, and then you can tell us also where you intend to gather your groups. You can, I'm sure for Alicia, maybe you can talk to your friends who are already now a friend of yours because of this project, KIC, and see if they're interested in doing something together like this and do a presentation. And I must also tell you that we are all doing this recording, as you can see, not only for the benefit of those who did not attend, but also making highlights videos, which we will be presenting to our members in the association to see what we're doing with this. So I hope if there's anybody who's a bit concerned about their presence in the video and do not want to participate, please let us know, so we do not show your face, your what do you call it, your picture. Okay. All right, great. I think this has been a very fruitful morning for me, and I hope it's evening for you too, and we hope to meet again next time. All right, everybody?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Sounds good. Okay. All righty.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
next
you.
time.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.